asset or entertainment for internet radio program called The Best Jams every Friday also. What do you think of internet radio? Do you think there's a future for it in our lives? Being that we can turn to the internet for everything, why not radio? Do you think it'll be the next best thing?
I absolutely think it's huge. You know, my own personal house has 4 computers used by 4 different people, and at any given time, we're all in different rooms on the computer. You know, we're back in the day, you know, we'd have to have the radios going, and it kind of used to drive me nuts because we had no choice but to listen to what one person wanted to listen to at the house at one time.
Right.
Now we're all in different rooms with the doors shut, and we're all listening to our own thing while we're doing our work or whatever. So, yeah, I think internet radio is definitely going to go far.
Okay. So, tell me about your new movie. You're shooting now, right? Is that correct?
We just picture wrapped last week. It's a dark romantic comedy. Don't want to speak on it too early,
okay.
but it's based on the true story that happened to me.
Oh, really?
I'll tell you about my cast, though. My cast is wonderful.
Okay.
Cherie Johnson Int, baby mama, who happens to be my cousin, is playing my best friend.
Okay.
Antoine Tanner from One Tree Hill and Carter, he's in it. Oba Tunde plays my father. Gwendolyn Yo from Desperate Housewives is in it. Jasmine Lewis, who played Ice Cube's wife.
Mm-hmm. I know who she is.
Yeah, Jazz is in it. She graced it for me. And a young lady by the name of April Scott, who was voted she's like Maxim's top 100 most beautiful women. She's a model actress. She's also in it.
And how difficult or how easy was it to pull it all together?
Ugh, it was very difficult. But you know what? It was so much fun. I wrote the film while I was actually in my trailer doing the movie 75.
Uh-huh.
I was going through a bad breakup, and I was heartbroken.
Okay.
So it was kind of like my therapy to write the film. I wrote it, I gave it to Brian and was like, hey, do me a favor, read this, tell me if it's crap, and correct my spelling. And he read it, and he came back to me about 2 or 3 months later and said, hey, I read your script. Well, my heart dropped because I really look up to him. He's like a mentor to me. And I didn't know what he was going to say. And he said, I think we should make it. And I said, what? He said, yeah, I think we should make it. This was in August. I said, are you serious? He said, yeah, I think like October. I think I'm going to give you the money to make it.
Wow. And
October 1st came around, and a check went in my bank, and it cleared. So we went into production.
Very good. And so, what, you just called around a couple people, or how did you cast?
We did audition. Well, first I called my cousin because I knew that I always wanted to work with her, and nobody has ever given us the opportunity to work together, even though we've been working all of our lives.
Right.
I called her and said, hey, I wrote this, and I definitely wrote it with you in mind. Would you do it? She bust out laughing, and she's like, of course I'll do it. I'll be there. Antoine Tanner had already played my boyfriend in 75. I've known Antoine for 15 years. So I called him, and he was like, I got you. So I had those two, and then, I had to search for the man who was going to be the one to break my heart.
Mm-hmm.
So we did audition around for him. A gorgeous man walked in the room by the name of Marcus Patrick, who's now, I believe he's on Days of Our Lives.
Mm-hmm.
And he's done a couple other films, and he's a model. And he came in and he killed the part. And everybody who came in after him, he made me a believer, so he got the role. April and I we just had kind of a sit-down lunch.
Okay.
To just see what the chemistry was like. I sat down and she's one of the sweetest people I've ever met in my life. Talk about a true Southern belle. She's just like a lady. I fell in love with her, and she got it. I ended up with a wonderful, phenomenal cast.
It sounds like it, and I'm excited. I can't wait. What about 75? Let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay,
you can push it all you want.
75 is a horror thriller based upon 7 kids who are basically out for their week of spring break. They go to one of their friends' mansions high up in the hills, and they play this prank calling game. And the gist of the game is if you can keep somebody on the phone for 75 seconds without them laughing or hanging up, you've won. Well, one of our characters ended up calling the wrong person and kind of made our spring break hell. Some people survive, some people don't.
And how was that? How did you get that role?
Brian Hooks and a few of his friends actually started talking about how they were going to do this horror film. We were all in Denver, Colorado, watching one of our friends play football. And I was like, okay, when you do this horror film, you know I want a job. They kind of laughed at me and shoved me to the left. I find out that Brian, Deion Taylor, and Rashawn Nutt has been together for a couple months actually writing the movies. So I start bugging them then, hey, you guys are writing something in there for me, right? Hey, you guys are writing something in there for me, right? And I had told Brian a year prior I really wanted to start producing. So he was like, okay, these are some steps that you have to take if this is something you really want to do. I did everything he told me, and he brought me on to the project first as a producer. So I had secured that job, but there was only one black girl in the film who I wanted to play.
Right.
But they were still auditioning other girls, and they wouldn't even let me come in and audition. They kept, like, pushing me in the office, like, just go work, just go work. And so I started doing, like, impromptu auditions for Brian and Deion when they weren't expecting it.
Right.
I was, like, walking in the office to get them to sign checks and just start doing lines.
Right. That's the way to go, right?
They told me a week before we actually went into production, they called me in the office, and they were like, hey, and I was like, what? They're like, do you still want to play Foxy Roxy? I was like, yeah. And they finally gave me the part.
Mm.
They said after all my impromptu, auditions to them, everybody who else walked in, they just weren't Foxy Roxy.
How difficult is it to produce? How difficult is it to get into produce? And
I honestly didn't understand what the job was when I said I wanted it. My uncle's a producer, so he's kind of been like a father figure to me, and I just kind of wanted to be daddy's girl and follow in his footsteps. It's challenging, because if anything goes wrong, from not having toilet paper to enough silverware to a fog machine coming in, to an actor missing his flight, is basically your fault.
really?
You're like a manager of 180 people, and I think the hardest part is when you have to deal with 180 people, you have to deal with 180 different attitudes, and everybody doesn't wake up happy all the time.
Okay.
But
So,
it's a good thing I'm a people person.
you sound like you are.
I really like people. I think I've learned to stay sane because I don't try to figure them out. I just take them as who they are and go from there.
What do you think about rappers and singers becoming actors and actresses? Do you think it takes away from a real actor or a real actress or a person that studied acting or a person who's in it just because they do love the art of it?
There's a lot of people who are hating on it. I don't have a problem with it. There's so many people in the Screen Actors Guild. They say, the odds are you get one job out of 100 auditions. If they come in and they get that job for themselves and they do well by it, then go for it. There's a lot of people who call acting their craft who I personally don't think are all that talented. But then you have somebody like Eve. When she came in, she was brand new, but as the show progressed, she really grew as an actress.
So
Her comedic timing is on, and she's funny. I watched her.
I've watched the Eve show, yeah. She's pretty good. So do you think, do you think that Beyonce was cast in Dreamgirls not because she was Beyonce and they thought that would bring more audience, but because she went in there and blew the audition?
I mean,